clearly daylight out, but the explosion literally turned it into nighttime. That is what we call a nuclear explosion. The Russians just launched an airstrike on what everyone thought was a Ukrainian weapons depot. Turns out it was a Ukrainian weapons depot, but it was no such Ukrainian weapons. It's not any old Ukrainian weapons depot. No. This is actually an extremely sad story, and one which, I think we all knew was coming, all right? Not too long ago, the Ukrainian government very happily announced that the United Kingdom had supplied the Ukrainian military with depleted uranium shells. Now, if you know anything about, depleted uranium shells and how they've been used in war by the United States, by the United Kingdom in the West, you know that depleted uranium causes extremely, inhumane suffering amongst civilian populations, because at the end of the day, in war, you can control some things. You can control where you're firing a grad missile. You can control where you're firing a ballistic, a hypersonic missile. You can control where you're firing a cruise missile. You can control where you're pointing, an AR-15 or a sniper rifle. You can control a lot of things, okay? You can control where you want your drone to go, and, a lot of things are within your control. Obviously, there's exceptions to that, but the one thing that you cannot control, and that we've learned throughout human history that no one will ever be able to control, is the effects of radiation in the air. It's just simply impossible to control where radiation goes once it makes its way into the atmosphere, okay? And this is a sad story because it just so happens that the Russian attack on this Ukrainian weapons warehouse was the warehouse in which the Ukrainian government was storing the UK supplied uranium shells. Now, again, you guys can look and see the effects of depleted uranium shells on, humans all you want on the internet. There's plenty of very open source, ample evidence as to the extremely harmful effects that uranium causes on human bodies, and not just human bodies in the present, but generationally, birth defects, cancer, generations down the line, how it can get into the environment, so on and so forth, okay? So uranium dust, you cannot control where this stuff goes, unlike any other weapon of war, chemical weapons excluded in that, of course. But so this is what happened. So the Russians did this attack, and I remember I was sitting, I was having my morning coffee, and I saw this video, and I was like, holy shit. If you haven't seen this video, the Russians did an airstrike in Khmelnytsky, Ukraine. I hope I got that somewhat correct. And this was the this is what happened. So that's a massive explosion. That is by far and away, I think, the largest explosion I've seen of any, war video I've seen from the Ukraine fighting thus far. That is a massive, massive, massive explosion. And that's what happened. And everyone saw this and everyone thought, wow, what just happened here? I mean, that looks like a huge weapons depot that just exploded. And again, yes, that is a weapons warehouse that exploded, but it's not your typical weapons depot. No, obviously not. Obviously, there's something a little more to this story than just some, Ukrainian HIMARS systems being blown up. Obviously, okay? And obviously, this is not just a fuel depot, okay? We're going to get into how we know that in a second. But before we get into this, I want to share this with you, because when the Russians hit this weapons warehouse, I'm sure they knew what they were hitting because they didn't want these weapons to end up on Russian territory, but they blew up a depleted uranium warehouse, and these depleted uranium shells were supplied by the United Kingdom. And when they hit this warehouse of depleted uranium shells, not only did it cause a massive explosion, It literally caused the sky to turn into night. It caused daylight to become nighttime. Okay? If you don't know what I mean by that, take a look at this second clip, which shows a pretty crazy angle of the explosion from up close. It made it turn nighttime. Yep. And there goes the uranium dust.
Ебать осколки нахуй. Охуеть.
Would not want to be that Ukrainian. Watch that one more time. It was daylight out, as you can see at the end of this video here. People are saying, is that the same video, Jackson? Yes, that's the same. So it's clearly daylight out, but the explosion literally turned it into nighttime. That is what we call a nuclear explosion. That was like Destiny's brain when I debated him the first time. And the second time. Chmelnytsky rose significantly after that took place, and I think we all know why. Here's videos of the aftermath, extinguishing robots because of uranium. Yes, that is likely why. So they are not sending any men in to go clean this up. They're sending robots in to go clean up this massive mess that they've now created. And one has to understand why, because they're not going to send men to go, I mean, one would hope they're not going to send men in to go clean up the aftermath of a very, very deadly toxic gamma ray explosion. Okay? Why is Ukraine using extinguishing robots? I think we all know why. All right. This is a Ukrainian politician. He's a Bandera guy named Igor Molsaychek, and he is sounding the alarm. He said that depleted uranium shells for British tanks could be stored in the warehouses destroyed by the Russian aerospace forces in Chmelnytsky and Ternopil. He advises to take children away from the epicenters of the explosions. Depleted uranium becomes toxic and deadly after an explosion when it turns to dust. Once in the body, uranium dust causes terrible diseases that affect the blood and kidneys especially strongly, and but not only. In other ways, it can kill you as well. Okay, so this is what's happening. And of course, where is Zelensky? Where's Zelensky? Where's Zelensky? The Russians just hit the depleted uranium stockpile of shells that the UK sent into Ukraine, and it blew up in this massive explosion. Where's Zelensky? Is he there consoling the people and encouraging them to get out of these epicenters of toxic gamma ray radiation? No, Zelensky is not there. Zelensky is not there. No, he was in Italy. He went to The Hague. He went to various countries to go meet with leaders. But most notoriously, and probably, with the biggest middle finger of all, where did he go? To the country that supplied him with those very depleted uranium shells, probably going to beg for more. Here's Zelensky, bro, hugging it out with Rishi Sunak, the head of the United Kingdom at the moment. He is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, hugging it out as his country suffers the effects of this gamma ray explosion, and the uranium dust, the radioactive uranium dust, settles in the lungs in the bloodstream of average Ukrainian civilians in Western Ukraine.